You've tuned in to Powerhouse on Purpose podcast, your go-to space for inspiration, empowerment, and practical strategies to unlock your potential and step boldly into your purpose. Hello, we are here with the Powerhouse on Purpose podcast, and today we are getting to talk to Sarah Sweeney. Introduce yourself and give us some information about you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Sweeney. I have cerebral palsy and a background in social work, and I am currently starting my own business as a life coach for people with disabilities and going through different life transitions.
Let's talk about that. So you said you have cerebral palsy. What's been your experience with that?
Well, that's a big question. It depends on in what context you are talking about. I think it has taught me to be resilient and really value advocacy, open-mindedness, and the ability for people to listen to each other.
Okay. I have never had a conversation with anyone who has cerebral palsy, but I do believe that advocacy with disability is a very important topic. I don't often see people with a disability advocate in this way. So I'm glad to see that you're starting your business. I'm glad to see that you're doing life coaching with other people with disabilities, being that you have one. And so I think that's important. People tend to do better with someone that has experienced what they're going through.
Yeah. I think advocacy has always really been an important part of my life since an early age. My mom was a great advocate for me in the school setting, medical settings, and just daily life. And so it really taught me as I got older, how important it was and what I needed to do and what people's voices meant. So I started being on the council for the statewide independent living council when I was 13, and I was on there until I was 21, and now I've been on there for 4 years, and I'm starting my second consecutive term as an adult.
Awesome. That is definitely complimentary. That is an amazing job. I do love that you said that your mom was, sort of your gauge of how to be an advocate and for the work that you do now. And so how else have you seen your experience growing up and things like that influence your purpose now?
I think just feeling like my family was a very integral part of making me feel safe and that I had a voice at home. But I know in society you face challenges and you face resistance, and so it was important for me to still remember that I had a voice in settings that were sometimes challenging and difficult. Even today with things that I do, I think we all get knocked down. We all have challenging times, but it's important to get back up and keep pushing forward for what you need and what you want.
That's great advice. And so let's move into your business. You said that you're starting up. So what's your goal with your business? And talk about some of the things that you could help with others that have disabilities.
Well, I went through a coaching program called Fowler International Academy, and the coach that I had actually also has cerebral palsy, and she is now has since changed hands, and she is the owner of the company now. But I am along with my personal business working with individuals with disabilities. I am also a certified master trainer, so I can train other people with disabilities through Fowler International Academy to become coaches and really use their voice and continue to help others as well.
Love it. What's the name of your company?
My company is Sarah Sweeney Coaching.
Sarah Sweeney Coaching. Awesome. You said there were moments or experiences that you've had, maybe that you were in rooms with people who may not allowed you that advocacy or allowed you to have a voice in the room. What are some of those experiences?
They've been learning experiences and kind of taught me, maybe not necessarily in the moment, but later on what I want to do differently. I grew up in a place where there wasn't a lot of people with physical disabilities, and I was mainstreamed student, and I just think people's minds hadn't quite wrapped around issues of accessibility and inclusion and all the things that are important today. It was just coming on the forefront when I was starting school. The Americans with Disabilities Act started in 1990, but it wasn't really enforced until 1992. So I kind of, grew up with the changes and with all of that goes into the Americans with Disabilities Act.
I recently left my corporate position, but I was the director for a community development department. And I remember when we would do all of our different projects, we always wanted to make sure that we were inclusive. And some of those requirements were from ADA, even how we built the homes, certain accessibilities, also making sure that we created an environment where we weren't keeping people out or creating a barrier. So ramps in certain places, elevators in certain buildings. I am familiar with how ADA has assisted those with disabilities and accessibility. But I
Mm-hmm.
do wonder, as someone who doesn't have a physical disability, and I want to make sure that I emphasize physical because I think we sometimes get lost in a disability that can be seen and one that cannot be seen.
Right.
I think we all have some disabilities somewhere, but we often give emphasis to those where you can see it. It's important that someone like me who doesn't have a physical one take the opportunity that I have now to talk to someone who does. What is it that you would like me to know about that experience? What is it that you would like me to know when concerning when I think about people with disabilities?
I think it's just realizing that people with physical disabilities are just like everybody else, and we deserve the opportunity to show our abilities and what we're capable of. I've found that a lot of the constraints in society are not necessarily due to physical limitations. They're due to the way society views the different barriers that may arise, and I think a lot of that has to do with that there's not people don't know of a lot of pockets of representation for advocacy in the disability community, but it is out there, and you just kind of have to look for it, and you kind of have to make sure that you know what goals you have in mind, and that you have a support system or community that you can lean into to get your answers, your needs met, and your questions answered, because there is a way to always get through different obstacles. And I'm not saying it's easy at all sometimes, but I think that the ability to get back up and keep pushing forward really gives you character and also empathy for others. But one thing that you were saying that I wanted to bring up, because it is a very important issue, and I think it's really prevalent today, is the DEI, the disability inclusion. What's the word I'm trying to think? The what companies have the implements that companies have put in place for them to make sure that all people's needs are met and they are included to the best of.
Yes. I did have a thought to ask you about that, and I wasn't sure where you'd be as far as discussing it. I know it's a hot topic right now, and I know some have been very sensitive about it. But DEI is being rolled back or being, dismantled. I think it's having a very big effect on more than just those. I believe right now it's a very particular topic amongst minorities. Diversity equity and inclusion is what DEI stands for anybody that listens that doesn't know. But I do believe statistically, DEI didn't help as many minorities as we think it did. I do believe that it's going to affect everyone, though. I think that's the biggest piece of it that we may not be understanding. It's going to affect everyone, but those who were allowed to be included, those who were allowed to be treated equitably, those who were allowed to be put on a level playing field, it is going to affect them. I recently saw where a veteran mentioned that his wife got a new job and they were very excited, had spent money, they were going to be moving to a new state, and the freeze on the federal grant won't allow her to move into that position. And so they are now essentially going to be homeless because they were, they gave up their house to move and they have no income coming in. Of course, her husband, being a veteran, may have some income coming in, but he didn't mention it. And so just these situations right now, how is the rollback of DEI affecting you? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
I feel like it's an unfortunate, but like you were saying, I don't know necessarily how much it was implemented as a guide versus something that we're still going to just need to fight for and make sure our voices are heard and needs are met, like you were saying about the individual that got the job. I've had many different experiences, and I'm just gonna name a few because it touches on what you were kind of talking about.
Mm-hmm.
When I started grad school, I left the state of New Hampshire and I went to Louisiana. The college that I went to, social work program for the graduate school, is a very small cohort, and the professors, were kind of outside or separate from the actual university. So when they found out that I was going to be living there, they had never had a person with a disability, a physical disability living on campus. The disability support services coordinator actually tried to get me kicked out of my program because they didn't want to see me as a liability for the university for my some of my daily needs that I was trying to meet, just normal things like getting up and getting ready for class. So I had to get a lawyer. A lawyer was appointed to me, and I wasn't able to talk to certain people within the university throughout my year and a half in grad school. So that's just like one example that I have. It's just, I think it's just a reminder to keep focused on what you believe in and what you think is important, because this stuff happened before this rollback, and it's going to happen afterwards. But just to make sure that people are speaking up for different things, and not just disability, in a more inclusive way, just things that you fundamental things that you need. And it's not always easy, but it's important to um have that. It it helps you grow as a person and evolve.
Yeah, I think hearing that gives testament to how we often feel that we've taken 10 steps forward, but we may take 20 back. Because if I heard you correctly, it was the coordinator for disability services. And
Yes.
so that's the person who's hired to help that was deciding that maybe we don't want to end up being a liability or something going wrong. So instead of helping, let's just eradicate the situation. And
Right.
that's hard to hear because to me, that position, that job title could definitely fall under DEI. And so as soon as you look at it as a helpful thing where people are being hired to assist in these spaces with diversity and inclusion, and then they don't fully do their jobs,
Mhm.
That's disparaging. And so I want to commend you. I do want to commend you on continuing to go and finish your program. I commend you on even being able to do it for a year and a half. That definitely had to be a difficult situation.
It was a difficult situation, but I had a great support system that I met through different friends, and they made sure that my needs were met as far as personal care attendant wise goes, and getting to class, and different things like that. But like I said, it's just so important to really open your mind and listen and understand, because you can't always see what somebody is going through in whatever walk of life if you're not walking through their shoes. I had moved to Colorado after. I'm sorry if I'm jumping around. I had moved to Colorado after I um left Louisiana, and I was 25, and I was kind of like, I made it through grad school. I made it through that hurdle. Kind of, mm, I wouldn't say untouchable, but I had more of a confidence that I could get through any circumstance for any reason. And I think it was partly due to my age and partly due to the fact that I had just overcome that. But I moved to Colorado, and I got a job working in a hospital. And it was a hospital for people with mental health issues. And the person that hired me, he obviously knew I was in a wheelchair. I went to the interview, but the higher ups, when they found out that I was in a wheelchair, they rescinded the job. They rescinded the position from me again due to the liability issue, I guess. And I'm not one of those people that likes to seek out legal advice or anything like that. But I did call a law office, and because they said that they were protecting me from the clientele, they had the grounds to rescind that job offer from me.
And so, with them saying they're protecting you from the clientele, did you agree?
Yes, I didn't agree with that, because I feel like whether you have a disability or you are able bodied, you know what you can handle. And if there was a mishap that arose, I would just hope that I would be treated just as any other employee that had something happen at work.
I definitely think there's a hole in the system there, because anything that clientele would possibly be able to do to you, they could do to anyone. So I definitely don't agree as well. I don't see where they have decided that someone not in a wheelchair or not with a disability, or even just the disability that you have, would be less vulnerable or less capable of injury. So that's difficult. Um, it's hard to hear. I'll be honest. Nobody is not affected by disability, but I also have an aunt who um, hasn't been able to full life. She lives in a home, and she's in her late 40s now. But if she had lived a fuller life, I can't imagine people deciding that she can't do things just by what she has to deal with, or disability. I find that very hard to accept. I
Mm-hmm.
put myself in your shoes, and I can't imagine. With me, I am a very determined person. I grew up in poverty. I was not going to statistically show up as a successful person. Growing up in a low income area, being of the lowest school ratings and things like that, you're not seen as one of the people that are going to be a success in life. You're not often looked at as if you're going to do the things that kids that had more advantageous beginnings can do. But at the end of the day, none of that will ever stop me from doing exactly what I put my mind to. And so I can only imagine that that's sort of where you're coming from. There's nothing that you can't do if you decide to do it. And I agree. And so it's very difficult to hear, but also I need the reminder. I need that checkup here and there to say this is still happening.
Right.
Even with things like ADA and DEI, we're still dealing with the same issues because putting things in place doesn't necessarily change things. It's the application of what's put in place, and people aren't always applying it.
Absolutely. It's important. It's important to have in any situation, any community, things aren't always going to go as smoothly as they should or as smoothly as you want them to, but it's important to have people, whether they're teachers or therapists, people in place that will see the potential, especially in kids coming up, continue to see the potential in kids and see that everyone has you know different abilities and different things that we can all bring to the table. I'm lucky. I don't want to paint all of my situations as difficult, because I feel like in the difficult moments, in the challenging times, there are definitely bright spots that I wouldn't change, and people that helped me through situations and really did see me for who I was versus you know what they might have seen on paper or just using their eyes, but really getting to know the individual is very important. And I want to keep that on the forefront for everybody, because it's it's important to people that go through struggles, and I think we're more aware of that. But it's important for everybody just to have that accepting, open mindset that things may look a little bit different, but there is a way to get from point A to point B.
Absolutely. And I just once again want to commend you, but not just you, just people overall in general with disabilities who fight the norms and the obstacles and still overcome. I commend them. I'm an advocate for people with disability. I do have a younger brother who had some issues in his early life while he was still an infant that caused him to learn a little bit slower. And I remember people treating him as if he couldn't do anything. And I'm like, he's capable of so much more, you know? And I realized that in his vicinity, the people around him telling him what he couldn't do often made him just not try. And so I was that big sister that I was determined, when it was time for homework, no, you're going to do your homework. When it's time for science project, no, you're going to do it. I'll help you, but you are going to do it. And just making sure he understood that he was capable of things and not
Mhm.
just a disability or a learning disability, but absolutely allowing people the space to know that they can do more and at least letting them try before you tell someone what they can't do, at least let them try. And I'm a very big advocate of can't is just not a word for me.
Yeah.
Can't once I've tried it and it didn't work. But typically when it doesn't work, I'm gonna find a new way.
Yeah. And I think it can go either way. When somebody tells you you can't do it, it is discouraging, and I kind of sometimes feel like there used to be these bobble clowns that you would punch, and they would just keep coming back up. I think you can either get like knocked down by that, or you can look at that as a fire underneath you to say, okay, this person said that I can't do this because of X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to use that as fuel to prove them wrong. Now,
Absolutely.
you still have those moments, and you take different amounts of time to get back up, but as long as your end goal is to prove, not necessarily prove to other people, but prove to yourself that you can accomplish goals that you have in front of you.
And I definitely think that you will be an inspiration for those that watch and those that end up viewing or listening to this podcast, I believe that you will be an inspiration. You'll be, if nothing else, you giving great information so that people know that it's not just about the person having a disability. They're just people. If you first see them just as people and take it from there, get to know them, learn about them, and then maybe decide what they can and cannot do once they talk to you and tell you what their limitations are. So I've appreciated this conversation, most definitely. I love to learn, and I think the best thing to do is to hear it from someone who knows it, right? You can go read statistics, you can read articles, you have scientists and different researchers who's like, oh, we researched this and we found that statistically this, that, and the third. And I always look at those articles and those different statistics, and I'm always wondering, who'd you ask? If you're gonna tell me that 70% of people with a disability feel a certain way, I would hope that you actually ask the disabled. And sometimes those statistics and those researches come from third-party experiences. And that's where I would love to always get a firsthand account of someone's experience and how they really feel and just have endured or even overcome. And so thank you so much. If you can give one piece of advice, one tip, or some knowledge that you would have everyone know about you, about what you do, about your life coaching, what would that be?
About me personally, that my experiences have shaped me into the person that I am and have led me down the path of helping people, whether it be in social work or now in life coaching. And it has, even though it's challenging, it has been a gift because I think it has made me the person that I am and made me view things in the way that I do. Just again, for people to have, in everything that they do, going forward with their lives, just to have an open mind and an open heart and kind of try to better understand things that you may not understand on the surface.
Great advice. I love it. Great advice. Tell us where we can find you. If there's anyone that would love to use your services who would like to, get life coaching, where can they find you?
My email address is Sarah Sweeney Coaching at gmail.com. My website that is up and running but still in progress is sarahsweeneycoaching.com. And I am also on Instagram at Sarah Sweeney Connects, and I will be starting a Facebook page as well. And I want to start a newsletter and a mailing list to keep people updated on, things moving forward as they unfold. Anyone that wants to reach out that wants to do a discovery call and to see if we're a good fit and I can be helpful, they can feel free to reach out to me through my email and we can set that up and have a discussion and see where we can go from there.
And I hope people will reach out to you. I think you have an amazing journey and purpose to help those who may not be able to help themselves. I also want to thank you for allowing us to be your first podcast show. I really appreciate that, and I definitely enjoyed it. Thank you for everything that you're doing.
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. I know I said it to you before, but it's important to allow people the opportunity to tell the stories for other people to be able to learn and grow from. And I think what you're doing is amazing, and the amount of people that you're reaching and the different stories that you've been able to kind of showcase.
Thank you so much.
My name is Sarah Sweeney, and I'm a powerhouse.
And that's a wrap. You gave such good information. I absolutely love it.
Thanks for watching. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to receive future notifications and to stay plugged in to the Powerhouse.